Hey everybody, it is February 3rd, 2019, and welcome to another Brooklyn Baritone podcast. Okay, now we're back. Of course, my name is Corey Ashley, and I am here with my beautiful co-host,
Natasha Ashley.
How you doing, Natasha? We missed you in the last one.
Feels good to be missed.
Okay, we're going to go into our next topic. When we're thinking about, we were kind of like had a debate of what we're going to talk about today, but felt more comfortable with the issue of Christians today. Before we go forward, the one I went solo on with what is wrong with men today, Natasha wanted to do that one over. We're going to do that one another time, but I guess we're more prepared to do the Christian issue that we find today. Now, the name of this podcast, of course, like I just said, is What is Wrong with Christians, because apparently we do see a lot of issues and a lot of problems here. And I also want to engage in what exactly is a Christian before we even go forward, so we can properly identify who are these people supposed to be. Now, do you consider yourself a Christian, Natasha?
I consider myself a follower of Christ.
Now, what does that mean?
Well, the word Christian was adopted because just like we use the slang or the derogatory word for black people, nigger. Can I say that?
Yeah, you can say that. You can do that.
They were known Christians. Christians was like a bad word. So it was not something that Christ himself said or his apostles. It was just a derogatory word to call these people that they did not like. Right,
yeah. So, yeah, the way I see it too, that word, Christian is like, now a term that's used kind of vaguely and loosely, thrown around to kind of lump certain set of people who do follow Christ, Yeshua, the Messiah, around, and people automatically just have a certain mindset of, you're a Christian, so you're automatically like a Bible thumper or a Jesus freak or whatever.
Let me just jump in here. I won't say follow Christ. I say accept Christ. I won't say follow Christ. People call people Christians just because they accept, I believe in Jesus Christ, so I'm a Christian. No, that doesn't make you a Christian. You have to actually follow in his footsteps and do as he does, and have the fruits of the Spirit as he does to actually be a follower of Christ.
Okay, well, right. So as opposed to being a term, it's supposed to be actual a way that you're following. The character that you're trying to model yourself is Yeshua. Going back to the term being loosely used, and what you said before, a little dip into history, you said it wasn't even a phrase that was coined by Christ or any of his followers. It's really a Greek term for a bunch of people called Christianos, like, them dudes over there. So we could identify, they follow that fanatical guy, who just got crucified, and, if some people do know history, that Christians were largely persecuted, and they were crucified, many of them themselves, a lot of them killed, a lot of them burned to the stake, a lot of them thrown to the Colosseum, for entertainment, to lions, and being beat up by other barbarians or gladiators, I should say, for amusement, because the world just wasn't trying to accept that way of life, because to them it was something that was new and fanatical, when it really should be a way of life. But that's kind of where the term came from. The origins, aren't. A lot of people who supposedly are Christians don't even know that history of the term Christians, But you could say, like, well, if you just identify it in a positive light, then it shouldn't matter. Then yeah, I understand that. I could definitely understand why people say it shouldn't matter, but it's also something that you should know as a part of your history if this is a type of life that you're going to follow. Now, I guess basically, as you said, we identify people who are Christians are people who actually following or accepting Christ. Now, we know pretty much who Christ was supposed to be. People who don't really know, he's the Messiah. He's of God, God in flesh. Because the plan was, when the original sin happened, the plan was already in place to redeem us, because sin is basically rebellion. People don't see sin as rebellion because that's another term that's been thrown around. It's like, sinning is just doing something wrong or you think morally incorrect, which could be true, but it goes way deeper into that, into the way your thought processes, the things you practice every day in your actions, the way you speak. All these things pretty much stem from sin and rebellion. Rebellion against what? Rebellion against basically the way in the word of how Elohim put things in motion. It's a really brief analogy would be, I used a car analogy before in one of my old Instagram posts where, the manufacturer says it's supposed to use gasoline to put in your fuel tank, but you figure you have some other kind of alcohol based liquid, be a moonshine, rubbing alcohol. Now that's basically rebellion. If you want to, like sinning against what is supposed to go into the vehicle so it can operate properly. So basically things that we're not supposed to do so we can operate properly, physically. That's why we have a lot of sicknesses, illnesses and stuff, and a lot of things that we're degenerating in a sense. Mentally, our ethnic capacity is like, very screwed up and we kind of get skewed or pushed in the wrong direction. So we're going against the actual guidelines of what the Father and Yeshua have for us. So that is really what rebellion is. And it's not just any big thing where you have to go murder 500 people, but it's actually something about the way you think of yourself, the way you build yourself up, the way you relate to others, how do you treat others, the things that you practice, even overeating, whether because you're depressed, whether because you just can't control yourself. It's a lot of things, but I'm rambling. Tasha's signaling that, I'm kind of hijacking it. So Tasha, going forward now, I covered all that stuff there. Now, what is wrong with Christians? Now we identified who they are and all that.
When I looked up what was wrong with Christians, what came up on Google was white Christians versus black Christians. And I didn't realize that there was a difference. And first I would like to say, before I get into that, we are asking what is wrong with Christians, not what is wrong with Christianity. There is nothing wrong with Christianity, but something is wrong with people who carry the message of Christianity. So what I read was white Christians don't accept or they show racism within their church and think that, believe that people are poor or don't make it because of laziness, not because we are oppressed, not because we are shown to the world that we are less than, accepted by the rest of the world. Because some countries we can't even get into. But I'm not going to get into that.
That's another topic we have lined up in another podcast.
Yes. So that was very interesting to me about how people view white Christians. Mm-hmm. Some white Christians. Let me clarify that. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to really touch on what I think is wrong with black Christians. Black Christians, what's wrong with them? I believe they're addicted to endorphin. As people, today, we are all addicted to endorphin.
Okay.
And for all those who don't know what endorphins are, endorphins trigger a positive feeling in the body, similar to that of morphine. So it's very addictive. We want to feel good. We want to hear things that make us feel good.
Like when I like drinking apple juice, because I love me some apple juice.
Yes. So And pastors, certain pastors, not all pastors, they know these things. They know the struggle that African Americans go through, what West Indians go through, and they want to make them feel good. So they tell them things to make them feel good. Therefore, collecting mounts and mounts of money. When Christianity is not about feeling good. Christianity is about returning that character that God has given you, has given us from the beginning of Adam and Eve, that image of God. You know, once sin came into play, the image was ruined. So he wants to give us back that image. When I say image, meaning the character of Christ. You know the 10 Commandments, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not bear false witness. I mean, to be honest, if everybody in the world followed just the 10 Commandments, we would all live very happy lives. I mean, there would be no hating, there would be no killing. People would respect one another. So, even though we have a lot of people fight against the Bible, nobody can disagree that following all the commandments, every single one of us, if we follow it, that there would be absolutely no problems.
Well, you know, you already have one group that's always vocal against it. You have agnostics and atheists.
Yeah, we do, because atheists are there because of bad Christians, I believe. And because other personal problems that they have with Christianity. But maybe they feel that God has disappointed them in some way.
Okay.
And, but basically they look at us and we are walking, talking, living, breathing hypocrites. Basically.
Okay.
So, Christ lived by example. We don't live by example. We say, do as I say and not as I do. Right. And this is one of the biggest problems, not just in Christianity, but in the human race, period. We all want our kids to do what we tell them to do, but then we do the opposite. You don't have to be Christian or any other religion.
Okay.
To understand that. We have this hypocritical behavior that we want everybody to do good but us. We are allowed to do what we feel like doing, you know. So that's one of the greatest problems, I believe, that Black Christians have and us as human beings have in the whole.
Right. Well, yeah, not just Black Christians, but yeah, I could see the divide, as you can say, because we have been conditioned to accept a certain flavor, a certain man-made flavor of what Christianity is supposed to be. So that of course translates over the years and centuries of us struggling, because we have some of the truth, but not the whole truth of how we're supposed to move. And exactly, I totally agree. And I haven't really thought about the whole chemical reaction of endorphins, of people just wanting to feel good all the time, but not actually doing good. So they only just do the things on a surface level that make them look and feel, or look a certain way, or just feel a certain way. I guess you could say the same thing of people always going on social media for stuff, so they can always feel acceptance, put on their best face. Of course you want to put on your best face, but at the same time, it becomes a problem now where we just want to do things just to seem good or feel good, and don't really have to really want to put the work in and pay our dues to really uplift ourselves, because a lot of people don't come up the proper way, even in Christian households, because a lot of times it's all about just getting up on Sunday or Saturday and going to church. Going to church, put on your suit, hallelujah, and then go home and start, go do the same thing again. That you've been doing all week. So it's like you just a little bit of holy for 1 or 2, 3 hours. Some churches 5, 6 hours. And then you go back to, Just
like Christmas. All of a sudden, Christmas, everybody wants to behave themselves. Everybody wants to be nice. Exactly. These are characteristics that you have to practice every day. These are things that you have to practice with your children. And it's not really before you reach the church, before you reach a religion, before you reach, anything religious. It starts at home. What do you teach your kids? What are you being taught? What have you not been taught? and that plays a role into being a good Christian, because ultimately being a good Christian is being a good person. It's not taking everything to heart. It's not being prideful. It's not being vengeful. It's not being, mean. It's not being envious. Being a good Christian, it just means being a good person and loving people like you love yourself, so it's very simple, but we make it so complicated and we make it so difficult because we fight about how we should do this and how we should do that. We fight about how we should this and being nice is supposed to be simple. Everybody's supposed to know what's a nice person, what's a bad person, who's a mean person, who's an envious person. We're supposed to know all these negative attributes as well as the positive attributes. So it's not really about the facade of doing something religiously. It's about being a good person, being a righteous person. I shouldn't say good, because only person is good as God, but he talks about righteousness, being a righteous person. So that means doing the right things. That doesn't mean being perfect. It means deciding in your mind what is right to do and reacting towards that, even though you feel otherwise. Even though somebody did something bad to you, show them love, and that will teach them that love is better than being mean. And this is how you teach people, by your character, by your actions.
So let's go about character, like for the first one.
It's going to always be about character, because everything we talk about, no matter what subject we choose to talk about, is going to always fall back to character. So I say again, it boils down to what you teach your children in the house, what you have been taught, what you haven't been taught. And hopefully by doing this podcast, we can reach everybody out there that to say, okay, we haven't been taught in our families about this, but let's do it better to teach our children how to deal with certain behaviors, how to deal with their own behaviors. Because one thing that church does is say, don't do this and don't do that, but you don't teach us how. Okay, you don't teach us about triggers. You don't teach us about thoughts. You don't teach us about self-awareness. You don't teach us about how we should deal with when we have anxiety. If something happens to us and we get upset and our hands start shaking, and our breath becomes short, and then we just want to lash out because we feel the need to be violent. Teach us how to deal with that, instead of saying, no, you mustn't be like that, or no, you shouldn't do that. That doesn't help. Okay.
So now what I see is a big issue with a lot of that too, is just the fact that people see things as only a way to look a certain way. And that's the problem and the danger of religion, because if you really, really have a relationship, and that's really what it boils down to, a relationship with the Creator, or Elohim, with Yeshua, is that you would know that they don't like and care for religion. And I feel, I could be wrong, but I feel like religion actually kind of started way back in Mesopotamia days, back with Nimrod and the nation of Cush, and, where people having a certain kind of ritual and traditions that they started doing as opposed to proper lifestyle. So like the religion thing is basically a facade, what you put on for other people to make yourself feel like you're doing what you need to do. You're checking off boxes, or you're showing up at church, or showing up to choir rehearsal, or you're giving, big money in the tithes when they pass it around, or whatever it is. And it's really supposed to be about a relationship with the Father, which will enhance your character, as we were mentioning earlier. So when you have a proper character and an understanding of who the Father is, and you have a relation to Him, that's what people are missing. That's why people are so upset with the Father, with God, where people don't want to accept God, because we have a lot of, unfortunately bad or poor, examples of what a Christian is supposed to be. So they utilize that as a reason to not follow, the will of the Father at all, or accept the will of the Father. Or even other Christians, they feel like, since all my other counterparts and colleagues are not perfect, then we're going to keep just not being perfect. And another thing I'm going to touch on too is that we're a little too, supposedly as followers of Christ and Elohim, we're a little too accepting of what everyone else who doesn't understand the Father. So, we're letting people dictate the way we move and live, with people who don't follow what we follow, who don't have a relationship at all with the Father. They know God as the loose term that's coined and thrown around too little too easy. They don't know Elohim. They don't know the character of God. They don't know the fact that we have a lot of innate abilities instilled in us from the Father. So we have people who's telling us how to live, what to do, what to accept, and we are too willing to fit in all the time. We have lifestyles, I'm going to say with, the homosexual lifestyle. Now, do I hate those people? No, I don't hate them at all. They're very good people out there. Everyone has good and bad in them. Everybody.
Exactly.
Now, it's like what I don't like is how people move. I could have people who I know who are womanizers. I'm not a fan of that at all. And we have people who could be, say, alcoholics. You have people who actually are workaholics. As good as we may think that is, that's not good at all. You have to have a proper balance of everything. And again, remember what I said before, what rebellion is, sin is rebellion, is against what the Father put down as proper standards. So we're not gonna go against the standards of keeping our laptops good and healthy. We're not gonna go against the standards of making sure our cell phones, fail. We're not gonna, throw it in water if it's not water resistant. We're not gonna, make it overheat. We're gonna charge it when we need to charge it. We do those things for the material things in our life, but the spiritual, what allows us to grow properly and move properly and think and act properly, we want to discard that. Which this is like insane to me. We have more respect for the material things, but then what's supposed to grow us better, we don't follow it, but then we go ahead and point fingers as to why things are so bad. So that's one thing Christians, not all Christians, but many Christians are always in the limelight, or people use the worst examples as to why things are bad. This is why I don't follow Christianity. Well, it's because we're a little too accepting of the world, because again, the world don't have a relationship with the Father like we're supposed to, but we allow them to dictate how we move. And that's where a lot of the madness comes from. That's what's wrong with a lot of Christians. What do you think about that?
Since you touched on homosexuality, I'm going to say this. The only problem I have with homosexuality is this. Don't force what you believe onto me. That's the biggest problem I have with homosexuality. Like, you can go and sue a baker because he chooses not to put two same sex person on top of it. But you can't go to the Muslims and do that. You can't go to the other religions or go to Arabs or these people that in their country you can't you can't cross dress. Mm-hmm. You forcing. I don't understand how we can say America is free and we have religious freedom, and yet Christians are the only one being bashed. So this is my problem. At the same time, you see, when they have the gay parade or some gay people in some other countries, they dress Jesus up as if he was gay. They disrespect the cross. They disrespect Christ. Right. They make shows about, blaspheming. This is an insult to Christianity. It's an insult to Christians. And nobody say anything. It almost seems like we're being bullied because you can't mess with the Muslims. So because we as Christians have to be humble, and because we have to be like, say, the Martin Luther Kings, where we take the beatings, it's almost like you're picking on us. You're beating us down because you can beat us down. Whereas you can't go that way to Malcolm X because they're going to say, yay, load them up, shoot them out. So it's like, it's almost, and that's my biggest problem. I don't have a problem with the person. I don't have a problem with what you prefer. Why I say I don't have a problem with that is because you have a choice. These are your choices. Sometimes you don't have a choice. Sometimes somebody molests you or rapes you or force you into a world that you didn't have powers over. So I don't judge that, and I'm not going to look down on a person because of that. I'm just really not, that's not me to judge. I'm supposed to love you regardless. If you're hungry, I'm going to feed you. If you need clothes, I'm going to give you clothes. If you need love, I'm going to hug you. I'm going to give you love, because that is what we're supposed to do with all human beings, no matter what it is. But my biggest problem, and I'm going to repeat again, my biggest problem is that you want to force the homosexuality agenda on Christians, and you want to beat us down, and you want to make us be like the bad guys because we don't accept it. That's our choice. You have your choices. We must respect your choices, and you must respect our choices, just like you respect Muslim choices. Just like you can't go to Iran. You have to respect their choices. You have to respect people's religion. This is what religious freedom is about. Wow. We don't have to accept that behavior. I'm not agreeing to put a children's book in to teach my kids about that because I don't agree with that behavior. I love the person. I can love the person and not agree with your behavior. And that's just how it is.
That's what it is. Because I wouldn't
It's
call
what it is. It's not hate. It's not hate.
It's what it is, though. It's just the truth. And you know.
And some people don't know how to respond in that, because when you do these things, when you move in anger and you move in aggression and you move with hate, you're going to get a response the same way. And sometimes Christians move aggressively, and I'm not going to excuse some so-called Christians' behaviors with that, you know.
Because you're supposed to know better.
Exactly, but be the bigger person. If you're a gay and you see somebody being mean and you're supposed to be this loving, joyful person, don't be aggressive. Don't be angry. You know, maybe you're angry because something deep inside you needs to be healed.
Right. Well,
you know,
and also too, again, where people say don't judge, but we're supposed to judge. We're supposed to judge righteously. People will say only God can judge me. No, we're all, if we have the proper character, can and supposed to judge ourselves and each other properly. People utilize that to pretty much be a scapegoat or a crutch to just do what they want to do, and kind of put you Christians in your place. Now, also when people talk about you Christians, and a lot of people want to throw up the counter argument about, well, you Christians, are in the KKK, or you Christians are, were in the Crusades. What about the Crusades and all that stuff? Well, again, if you don't have an idea of who Elohim is, then you're not going to know what his character is. And if you don't know what his character is supposed to be, what he's supposed to be about, then you can't possibly know how to tell the difference between someone who puts on a shirt, or I put on a shirt where I say I'm a good guy, but I go around pushing old ladies in the street, I rob people. Just because I have a shirt on that says I'm a good guy doesn't mean I am actually a good guy. Now, you would know people who are in the KKK, they're not Christians. They're not followers of Christ, because that's not what Christ is about. People who are in the Crusades, they're not followers of Christ or Elohim whatsoever. But because they say they did, or carried a cross, or say in the name of God.
People say that.
People say that
because at one time Rome was the leader of the world. And when they accepted Christianity, everybody followed behind Rome.
But people didn't really understand.
But people don't understand and still don't understand that
supposed to have.
Christianity did not start with Rome. It started with Jesus Christ.
They happen to be a money machine behind it. That's why.
But if you want to speak about Christianity, and you want to talk about Christianity, you want to talk about Christians, talk about Christ. Start with Christ first.
That's where it's supposed to start at.
Because if all of us have the same name, if I carry a name Ashley, just like how we say black people.
Oh, you black people.
If one person acts up, people say, oh, all of them is like that. They don't single it out. And that's the same way we look at Christianity. We see these people, and because they're the leaders of the world, and they're doing this and they're following this,
that's why I don't like
we
that
say
term.
That all Christians are the same.
Right.
No, they're not.
Right.
Christianity did not start with Rome. It did not start with the Pope. It did not start with the Roman Empire. It started with Jesus Christ of Nazareth. And that's who you have to look to. Don't look to Rome, because Jesus had nothing to do with Christmas. He had nothing to do with Easter. He did not tell you to follow these traditions and world man-made traditions. Yes. So we have to look we follow the crowd. One person says this and it sounds good, so we keep saying it and we keep saying it and it keeps following. Well, you have to dig a little bit deeper.
Let me say this too, because a lot of people, stepping on toes, but it is what it is. It's the truth, where a lot of people who will make it to the kingdom up in heaven that don't even really go to church. But then speaking about church, not throwing stones, but I always want to make sure that people understand that Rome is the one that changed the Sabbath day of rest, day of worship, to Sunday. Christ didn't do that at all. People will say, well, he did away with the word. No, he didn't. He didn't do away with any of his word or his commands or anything like that. Now, I could totally understand where you are in your relationship with him and understanding. And the Spirit will move you. The word will move you, to do certain things when you're ready and when you have a certain level of discernment. Now, people do defend that, oh, well, I go to church on Sunday. Why? Because really it's because of tradition. Because there's nothing in the book that you read every Sunday or go to Bible study for. There's nothing that supports going to church on Sunday as a day of worship and rest. And even more on top of that, people don't even treat Sunday as a whole day of rest or worship anyways. You just get up, get ready, go to church and come back, pretty much do the whole shebang, what you were doing the week before, not really practicing anything you're supposed to be practicing. So you don't even treat Sunday as a full day of worship. You just go to church.
You gotta explain practicing what means. You have to break down what do you mean by practicing.
Right. Well, practicing is like
right.
You're supposed to have a certain action, holiness, activities, and mindset. You're supposed to separate yourself from not just going to work, but like going to the mall, looking at certain movies, because the Sabbath was really set aside to be the blueprint day of the rest of your week. So even though you are at work, you're around other people and everything, the kind of reverence you're supposed to have, being quiet, listen to certain kind of music, engaging in certain conversations, refraining from certain things. This is supposed to be the blueprint day for the rest of your week. So it's supposed to, recharge you and also, get you, any weight you have, anything you're tired of, whatever, you get a chance to ease off, relax, talk with the Father, communicate with your kids, all that stuff. But we don't even do that on Sunday. People who do go to church on Sunday. And again, there's nothing in the book that promotes anything or supports anything about this day is supposed to be a day of rest. Even though if you are a follower of, of Christ and Elohim, if you're strong in your relationship, then yeah, I could see why it doesn't matter, but it's a command. It's been in the beginning. The Father purposely set that day aside. So it has to have a certain meaning to him, and he has a certain reverence for that day. And he made it for us to be with him and to be with ourselves and our family as well. So it has a special meaning. So a lot of people who do follow Sabbath, we follow Sabbath. We understand, why it's special to the Father. Not just, get up in arms because we feel that we have to defend going to church on Sunday, but from Genesis to Revelation, it talks all about Sabbath keeping. But I think we covered a good amount of issues with Christianity. We could go on and on, but we're not trying to go on and on and on. We could probably save it for another day, another podcast, another explanation, because all these things that we talk about, they mesh into each other. And these are things that a lot of people, who are supposed to be Christians and regular people out there, these are things that people don't know. And there's a lot of people out there who do know this, and they discuss it every day. So we're just two people in this world full of billions, sharing not just our thoughts and opinions, but things that we've studied. These are things we've studied and things we experience and things we actually apply in our lives. And we know it works, and we know it should be the standard for everyone else out there. So, we're about to wrap up this podcast, but, we covered who Christians are, why we are wayward, what's the problem in the world, what's the way forward. Then Natasha covered a lot of that. Thank you for your research and your input. Do you have anything closing that you want to say before we get out of here?
We started off with what's wrong with Christians, so I'm going to end with this. Christians don't, for the most part, follow Christ. If we look at Christ and how he lived and how he moved, he was poor, he was homeless, he wasn't rich. And he gave all of himself.
You need to give that prosperity preaching.
All of himself to people. He gave all of himself to people.
To the people who were like low lives too, supposedly.
Yes, even in death. So to be a true Christian is to follow Christ in every aspect of his life, the way he lived, the way he treated people. And it will be a better place.
Right. And remember, he ain't go to the rich people. He ain't go to the kings. He was down in the regular street with everybody. He was getting gully with everybody. you know, and he was gangster with it because he had a certain approach to people, a regal approach, not what we think a king is supposed to be now, you know, sitting on a throne and got a bunch of subjects under them and money, but a regal approach to take care of people. That's the difference between dominion and domination. You're not supposed to dominate, you're supposed to have dominion. Dominion means you take care of everything and everyone that you survey. So we wrap this up. I hope that we hit a chord with you. If you got flared up, it's okay. That's good. If we made you think about stuff, good. But the idea is to be properly regal and take care of everyone around you. Not just yourself, not just do you for you, but take care of yourself first, and then you got to make sure everyone else is taken care of. And that means not, you know, your neighborhood too, your kids, your neighbors, people who are complete strangers. Follow that road, and we could see a great increase, not just blessings, but increase in your respect for your life, this life that's been given to you, we've all been blessed with, and the lives of others. That's really what it is, having respect for everything else and caring for everything outside of yourself. This has been another beautiful Brooklyn Baritone podcast. I'm Corey Ashley.
I'm Natasha Ashley.
Thank you for listening. We will see you next time on our next subject. Take care.